So say you're trying to start a clothing brand, but maybe the thought of creating completely custom products is just kind of overwhelming to you. But then at the same time, maybe print on demand is not the option for you because you're not going to make as much profit or anything. The thing that catches in the middle is probably going to be what's going to work for you, and that might be private label. Hi, I'm Annie. I'm a veteran of the fashion industry of 18 years in design, development, and production. And I'm here to help you try to navigate your way through private label. So let's get started. So what private label is when you're buying blank wholesale garments from wholesalers. These wholesalers are kind of like people like Bella Canvas, what's some of the LA Apparel, Hanes is one. There's a whole bunch of different ones that you can go for. There's actually a lot more private label brands than you think. You're buying from them. When you buy from them, you are obligated to then change the garment in some way, shape, or form. Some are very liberal about it, where it's just, hey, just put a main label on the garment and then you can sell it as is. Or some are like, you have to put some kind of artistic piece on it to make it different, because some wholesalers also are a brand and they also sell the same apparel under their own brand, like alternative apparel. Alternative apparel has a wholesale private label side to it, but then they also have the alternative apparel brand. So they don't want somebody to get confused. If you don't do anything to the blank to make it uniquely yours, then there's going to be confusion in the market between, like, is that an alternative piece or is that XYZ piece? So that's why some brands are very particular about that. Some private labels are strictly private label brands and they don't care. And they'll just be like, just throw a main label on it and you're all good to go. Depends on which one you want to go with. But essentially you're buying from a wholesaler, and then typically you are changing it in some way to make it uniquely yours, in which case you're sending that to a embellisher, screen printer, embroiderer, whatever way you want to change it. They are going to print it, add the embellishment onto it. Typically, they can also add your hang tags to it, put it in a poly bag for you, and send it back to you, and then you can ship it as you need to your customers. So the timelines are a lot shorter, but there's a lot of nuances when it comes to private label. So the pros and cons to private label is that it's basically more of a DIY version of print on demand. You get more profit, but you have to do more work on your end. But I think it's nice because you have more options, because when you're working with a print on demand supplier, whatever apparel they offer is what you got. But when you're doing private label, and say you're a graphic based brand or you're a streetwear brand, you have the opportunity to go shop and source a private label company that has apparel that fits better with your brand's aesthetic and ethos. So that's the nice thing about private label. You don't have to worry about the development. You don't have to worry about design of the garment, at least. You just have to worry about picking out the right styles and combination of the right styles with the fabrics and the colors you want that fit with your brand, and then just add some kind of embellishment that makes it unique to your brand, and you're good to go. So choice is really great. Also, you are going to have some inventory, but that's very minimal inventory, meaning like you can order 6 to 10 pieces per style, not even per size, but per style, per color, in order to meet their minimums for wholesale pricing. So that's great. A stack of like 6 to 10 garments can be that big. Put that on in the corner of your bedroom if you want to. The thing that gets a little bit annoying when it comes to private label is the process of getting it from your private label wholesalers to your embellisher, and then having your embellisher do it. So there's a couple of options for you when you're doing that. And then your pricing, right? So you can have much more control when it comes to your pricing. The prices for a private label, they're still pretty affordable, but remember, that's only for your garment. And then you have to, everything else is like kind of like a la carte, right? So let's say your garment is $9 for a t-shirt, because you're buying the minimum of 6. Then you have to go to your embellisher, whatever cost they provide based on your artwork and how you want it placed and everything. And then if you want them to tag it, if you want them to bag it, and then send it to you, you'll be able to have more control about how much that's going to cost you. And so it can really affect what your your profit margin is going to be, but still you're at the mercy of like whatever supplier you decide to use, right? So the cons can be that you're giving yourself more control of your brand's aesthetic, but still not fully, because nothing's ever going to beat making your own custom apparel where you're picking out the fabrics, you're picking out the fit, you're designing the silhouette yourself. But this is pretty close. You know, like if you can compromise on garments and or take the time to really search, you know, it's a lot more work on your part. And this is the first step to like really getting into like real apparel manufacturing. So the time to go from print on demand to private label is a lot more significant. You're probably looking at more like 2 to 4 months to get it going before any styles get on your website. Your investment for product is going to be higher than print on demand, because print on demand, really, you can do it with like zero if you wanted to. If you're making all your artwork and not paying for a subscription with the supplier and just taking the least amount of profit, you could do it with zero if you want to. Private label, you do have some upfront costs. It's still on the minimal side if you look at the scope of all the other production styles you can do, where it's OEM or contract manufacturing, but at the same time, it's still an upfront cost that you're going to have to incur. Private label also, like I said before, has more steps for you to do. It's more DIY, but you can do everything still in-house in the US. You don't have to do overseas or anything like that. So that's always nice. And that's pretty much, I mean, there's not a whole lot of cons when it comes to private labeling. Obviously, your unit price is going to be higher than doing OEM or contract manufacturing. But, you know, the less investment in terms of MOQs that you put in, that's what you're just going to have to expect. So what is the process of private label? Well, like we always say, you know, the very beginning of any brand, anytime you get into the nitty gritty of like, what is your brand ethos? What is your brand aesthetic? What are you offering to people? All that good stuff, right? Don't skip that. Please don't skip that, because there's no point in creating a brand if you can't even differentiate how your brand's different and what you're offering to people. So do that first. And then second is deciding if you're going to either find a private label supplier, a manufacturer, wholesaler that will allow you to just use their styles and just put your main label on it and then maybe just the logo, or are you going to use one where they require you to have graphic pieces as in an actual embellishment? Choose between the two. And when you've decided which way you're going to go, you decided to go, hey, I want to do graphic pieces because I want this to be a streetwear brand, or you're doing merch, you're an influencer. Are you going to design it, or are you going to have a designer design it? If you have a designer design it, you got to do your mood boarding, give your designer as much information as possible so they can design it in the most efficient way possible. If you design it on your own, there's no extra cost because you're just designing it on your own. Have all those design pieces ready to go, and then you're off to sourcing your private label. Private label is a lot easier to source just on Google private label suppliers. There are distributors that you can look into, which are like Sanmar and Port Authority. They have huge catalogs of multiple brands that you can work with. You can go direct to a wholesaler. So like I said, going to a direct brand like Alternative, Bella Canvas, and apply for their wholesale account. You do have to apply and be approved for this type of production. They don't just allow anybody to buy it, because otherwise, you know, their regular brand wouldn't sell very much. Stipulation is that you have to have a business license, probably a business email, that kind of good stuff. Other ways you can source is if you go to a trade show. You do also have to prove that you are a business, but you can go to a trade show, go to the sourcing side, and then and there are smaller, more local trade shows instead of the giant ones like Magic. Like I think what is it called? There's one in Long Beach that I know. It's Impressions Expo. So Impressions Expo is a trade show that is specifically geared towards private label. So that's a really good one to go to. You'll go through and they'll have multiple booths of private label suppliers, and they'll also have the people like your screen print supplier or your embroiderer, because they're looking for equipment for their brands. And then a lot of times they also contract out with a private label company, because they can also offer that to you, right? Your embellisher can also, you know, you can go have your contract with them, and then you can order your apparel directly through your embellisher. So those are good types of screen printing trade shows for you to go to. And then you have to find your embellisher. Embellisher is your screen printer or your embroiderer or whoever you want to be adding your graphic pieces onto your garment. They can also bag and tag. Tag meaning putting your hang tag on there. Bag meaning wrap it up into your poly bag so it's nice and clean when you get it, so that your customers can get a clean garment. That's a separate cost. Then you want to have your photo shoot, put it up on your website, and you're good to go. Now, private label is a very straightforward way of doing production. You can do everything where, you're not having to communicate with people internationally or out of your time zone. You can be very local in doing it. And a lot of people like doing it. Even big brands still do private label. If you're a huge brand and you just want to have a random t-shirt and don't want to go through the hassle of developing a full t-shirt and everything with your supplier, and you're just trying to test the market, private label is a good option for you. If you want to do private label, it's a good way to dip your toe into the industry, into what actual production could be. You're starting to take on a lot more responsibility in terms of how your garment is created, taking a lot more responsibility of what pieces that you are buying from, because you don't have to buy every single one from a single supplier. You can buy from as many as you want. And I would suggest that also, because I'm always a fan of expanding your production, just because you don't want to have a factory or a supplier handle everything, because things can go wrong. Right? Private label is much more about sourcing than it is about design, to be honest. Take your time to source the right garment with the right brand, right wholesaler, right manufacturer that works best for you. And honestly, the less times you have to touch the apparel is better. The more times you can just send it out to somebody else, that would be ideal, just because they know what they're doing and you're still just starting out. So I hope that helped you out. I hope that you learned a little bit something from that. We're going to keep on expanding on what private label is, whereas OEM, contract manufacturing, and print on demand. If you have any questions, please comment below, like and subscribe if you like my content, and I hope you do, and I hope you're getting something out of this. Check out my next video right here, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, bye.